Hola, ¿qué tal estáis? Soy Lorenzo Sanz de Play Skip Repeat. En el día de hoy quiero mostraros un vídeo muy especial que grabé con BRUCE SOORD, líder de The Pineapple Thief, en el que no solo hablamos de su último disco en solitario, sino también de la escena musical en pleno siglo XXI. Creo que es muy interesante para todos vosotros, así que echadle un vistazo y comentad. Muchísimas gracias.
Bienvenidos a Play Skip Repeat con Lorenzo Sanz.
Hello.
Hello, Bruce.
Hi. I just turned my phone around.
Yeah, I can see you okay now.
Okay,
How are
good.
you?
I'm good. Very good, thank you.
Fine. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you on this record. Your solo career is solid and full of very inspired moments. And your solo work is very different from what you do with the Pineapple Thief. You are a very acoustic and emotional artist. Sometimes in the music world, it's difficult to define an artist's profile, but you manage it very well in both cases. The question is, how have you achieved that, and how do you avoid mixing what you do in both projects while keeping them sounding so great?
Yeah, thanks. It's difficult. It's difficult. I don't really think about it. I think the main thing, for when I'm doing solo is that I would have a solo head. I would put it on, and that would be me. It's not something that I could I couldn't just snap out of one and go into another. So I spent a lot of time on the solo, which is very much based on solitary, emotions. I'm alone in my studio, or I'm alone in a hotel room, or on tour when I was writing a lot of this. And that gives it a very, very different feel. Whereas the Pineapple Thief now is the four of us, and it's so much bigger than any individual. So it's such a different process. So yeah, it's very easy, I think, now for me to separate the two.
So Bruce, what emotional motivations led to the creation of the songs of this new album?
So I think that, like all my solo records, it's really what I'm going through at the time. I remember when I did All This Will Be Yours, I had a very young daughter who arrived, bit of a surprise, and that were basically based, formed at the basis of all the songs, thinking about the future that was in store for her. What was going through my life during the last couple of years, which is what a lot of people have to go through, is having to deal with sort of end of life for your parents. So it's a bit depressing. But so my father was going through dementia, and he was very ill. He was in hospital for 3 months. So I spent an awful lot of time on a hospital ward. And he was suffering from psychosis. He thought that there was a conspiracy. He thought I was in on it. He was trying to escape, jump out of windows. Eventually, he was discharged to a home and shortly afterwards he died. And it was sad, but it wasn't a tragedy. He'd lived a long, good life. He was in his late 80s. So, but it's something that we all go through. Everybody has to go through this at some point. We lose people, we grow old. It happens. So, and at the same time, my mother, who has Alzheimer's, she was in a home. She's not in any distress, but she can't recognize anyone or remember anything. So, again, the emotions that brings, it makes you think about life, about existential sort of issues. And so all I did was pick up the guitar and write about these things, and it really was. I didn't want it to be, obviously the subject matter is quite dark, but I wanted to make it positive. So I was really, what it is that most of the songs are about memories, cherishing your memories, cherishing the life that you've had, and what it's made me do even more than ever is to take a moment every day and just to be still and to breathe in the air and just be thankful that you're here for another day. So that was really that's what informed the whole record.
Okay. Well, when I was listening to this album, I immediately thought, this is BRUCE SOORD and nobody else. I realized this, especially with the song Pillars.
Yeah.
And the question is in today's landscape where so many bands sound alike, what does it mean to you to sound only like yourself and for people like me to instantly recognize it?
Oh, it's obviously something that that's really good to hear. Obviously, you don't want to be sounding generic and like other people. It's not something that I did consciously. I think maybe because I've been doing this for so long, I don't think about it. I don't think, oh, I've got to do this in this style, or I have to be, we need to write a song that's going to sound like this. I just pick up a guitar and just write. There doesn't seem to be any pretense. There's no pressure I feel inside to do anything that is. I know it probably sounds a little bit pretentious, but I honestly just what I write and what I do is 100% me. I don't feel under any pressure, and that's very different to how I felt when I was in my 20s, when I started my musical journey. In my 20s, I felt tense and I felt like there was this desire. I have to make it as a musician. I know I need to get out of my day job, and I need so that did influence how you would write and how you would sound. And whereas now I think I'm kind of older and calmer and sort of much mellower. And that's what happens to people, isn't it? When they grow old, they kind of get a bit mellower and accept. And I kind of understand my place in the universe and in life, and so I think that helps. That helps a lot.
Mhm. Well, Ghost in the Park is a very long song. Do you think that the narrative of a song should define its length until everything that needs to be said has been told?
I think so, and that song, I didn't mean it to be long, and the way that song came together was I started writing it when I was on tour with the Pineapple Thief, and we had a day in Oberhausen, and I sat in the park in Oberhausen, the Kaisergarten, it was called, this big park, and that's when I started writing it. And I wrote down these words, and I went back to the hotel room on the day off the next day, and I started writing it. And then the next day off in the next town, I carried on writing it, and it just carried on. It just had this sort of life of its own, this momentum. And then I remember getting to the end of it and writing the final piece, which is almost like that song is trying to make sense of life. And then at the end, you kind of do find sense in life, which is accepting that, that actually probably not thinking too much about it, but thinking about how precious it is and all your memories and cherishing them. And so I was very keen to have a journey and for it to have a positive end.
Okay. Well, Bruce, what achievements in commercial terms do you hope to reach with this record? Do you feel? Do you feel you know your ceiling as a solo artist and believe the best is just to come, or are you satisfied with making albums? Yeah, from time to time to fulfill your own artistic drive.
Good, very good question. I honestly don't think about it that much, because I think if you start thinking about that, then it can get in the way of what you're doing. I mean, I'm very, very grateful that I get to sit in my studio every day. I get to write songs for a living. I get to tour the world. It's amazing. It's extraordinary that I can't believe that I'm actually doing it. So in that respect, that I don't wake up every day and go, why aren't I selling more records? Why don't I, especially with the solo work where it's much, much smaller, I don't get angry with the world anymore. I did it in the 20s. I was like, why isn't it happening? Why haven't I got a record to Well, I don't have that anymore. I'm just really, really grateful. And when, if there's 100 people in the audience and I know that I'm sharing something with them and they understanding it, then that is enough. That is enough for me. If it gets bigger, great. That's great. But I honestly don't think about it. I'm thinking about it now because you've asked me. So,
yeah. Regarding to this, I still remember when you came to play in Madrid. I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and you arrive in a band with your tour manager, the bassist from I think the Pineapple Thief, and a female drummer who
Yeah.
played spectacularly. And you told me you were driving from France. And
Yeah.
the question is, where do you find the motivation to ignore the exhaustion when you're on tour?
So to ignore ignore the.
Yeah, the exhaustion, the I don't know, because I suppose you would be very tired.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think the thing about the good thing about touring with the solo stuff is that John, the bass player, he's my one of my best friends. I've known him since I was 18. So we have this camaraderie. We're both driving in the front. It's like boys on a little road trip. We have a really good time. So it was a huge drive from Paris down to Madrid, and it's beautiful, a beautiful drive. And we were exhausted. And I remember at the end of the tour, me and John looked at each other and said, "Oh my goodness, we are so tired because it's much smaller. You don't have the crew to help. With the Pineapple Thief, it's so easy. We have a bus, we have crew. We don't have to do anything, which is why I had so much time to write when I was on tour." Driving ourselves around, going to hotels. You go to a venue, the Madrid place, play the venue, pack up yourself. Oh my goodness, I had to pack up my own things. And then get in the van, drive to a hotel, which is normally out of town, by which time it's probably 1 a.m. at best. And then you look at the schedule and you've got to get up at like 7 or 8 a.m. and carry on driving. You do that for 2 weeks and you are absolutely exhausted. But we look back on it now, me and John, we look back on that tour with, it was difficult at the time, hard at the time, but really, really enjoyed it. But I think because of that, because you love it so much, you can get through it.
Yeah, that's the point. You love it so much. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, your albums are being released through the label Scope, a label that has always supported you and believed in you. And in your case, especially nowadays, what does Scope give you that another label couldn't?
Well, I think certainly for my solo stuff, I've known the people there since 2006, so they understand me, and like you say, they support me. And there's the marketing guy, Johnny Wilkes, who's probably the in terms of the creative running of the business, is probably the guy there. I've known him, so many years. It doesn't feel like a business. It feels like he's my friend. I've been talking to him for ages about doing this next solo record and sending him the tracks, and so it's a very, very intimate feeling that I have with the label. Very supportive. So yeah, I'm very, very pleased. And also, I appreciate how lucky I am to have the power of a label as big as Scope, as important as Scope, that are able to put my music out there.
Good. Well, you are also a producer, and you've specialized in Dolby Atmos mastering, among other engineering skills. How important is it for you to keep developing not only as producer, but also in understanding how the music business works?
Yeah, I think it's just, again, because it's a passion, I think that it's just something I just enjoy. I enjoy keeping up with it. And I think as an artist, as a songwriter, I'd be really, really uncomfortable if I didn't have control. I wasn't able to write and record and mix my own stuff. And I'm quite surprised that there aren't more people out there that do that. People like Stephen Wilson, obviously. I thought when I met Stephen years ago, I thought there'd be so many more people like us, people that were getting into, really keen about mixing in all the formats like Dolby Atmos and things like that, and also writing their own stuff. And surprisingly, there haven't been that many people that do that. So yeah, it's just like you say, it's just because it's a passion. It's a passion, so it's a joy just to keep up with it. It's just fun. It's a really good fun thing to do.
Oh, good. Well, Bruce, what is the point of releasing a full album in an era where people's attention is so fragmented? That do you still know many people who are able to sit in their living room, listen to a full album, and enjoy it from start to finish?
This is an interesting question. I think there's a lot of people who are quite cynical about the modern listening sort of, behavior of people. Are we living in a world where if you're not interested in the first 5 seconds, then you move on? you're only interested in songs, not in albums. I only know from my experience. One is that when we tour with the Pineapple Thief, when we go to the USA, we have to do these VIP days. I mean, it's the only way we can make it financially viable. But it gives me a chance to meet people, and they all say they have listening rooms. Quite a lot of them, about 50%, have surround sound rooms, Dolby Atmos rooms. They all love the album format. So it's certainly not dead. But one interesting thing that I'd like to add is that I've got 19-year-old twin boys, so I can see what their listening behavior is, and they listen to albums. They're buying vinyl. Even though they stream, they play entire albums. Not all the time, but if we're driving in the car, they say, "Dad, listen to this." They will play the whole album. So I'm quite optimistic about the future of the sort of album format. At least a series, a collection of songs that belong together, that deserve to be listened to from start to finish. So yeah, I might be naively optimistic, but I'm still optimistic about it.
Yeah, me too. Well, you're an artist who makes a living from music, as you have said. And what are the smartest moves you've made in your career to achieve that? And what have you had to give up, if anything?
I think the smartest thing I did was that I didn't make any really rash decisions. People were always saying to me in the early days, "Bruce, give up your day job, go for it. Just go, get in the van, just go full time." If I had done that in the early days, I'd have gone bankrupt, and I'd probably not be making music now. So I still had the passion, but I carried on, and doing it as much as I can. Never ever sort of thinking, "Oh, I'm going to give this 2 years, and if things haven't happened in 5 years, then that's it." It was always a lifetime's ambition. And I think when I look back on it, I mean, I've been full-time professional for 11 years. So the time before that, I had a day job that I hated, but it gave me the ability to invest in a studio, made me be able to learn the craft of mixing, and that enabled me to carry on putting albums out. And slowly, things just got to a point where I could make it full time. And I think that's what people need to understand, is that very, very few people are overnight successes. You have to really think about a lifetime in this business. And the way I did it, I'm not saying it's typical, but it's to be a full-time person in the music business is not easy. And I think you just have to accept that you have to really, really work, and it might take 10, 20 years before you can do it.
Yeah. Well, and related to this answer, do you think the current music business allows new and talented artists to make a living from this? If so, what should they focus on to make that happen?
Well, I think there's pros and cons. It's never been easier to make music. It's never been easier to distribute your music. So anybody can get their music out there on all the streaming platforms, and if you're good enough, then people will hear you. So in that respect, I think that's really positive. In the 80s, you had to know people. You had to be lucky, or you had to be so amazing that you were just the talk of the town. But most people would be, desperately trying to write songs, playing in their local town, and that would be it. And they would be unheard of. At least people have got that avenue now where you can do anything. The trouble is obviously, everyone's talking about it, you don't make any money from the streaming platforms, and touring is becoming more and more expensive. So it's very challenging, but there's other ways of making money. And I think what I've learned is that people who are passionate about a band, or they like to buy things. So so you don't need to think just about selling the music. You can sell your t-shirts, posters, art, all these other things. And also, touring is hard, but we're able, the Pineapple Thief is, it's a fairly successful band. Even my tour with the last solo record I did, we made some money. We were able to make some money. I did a live CD and sold that, and I signed them, and we only did 1,200. But that made enough money to pay. So you've got to be a bit creative, but it's challenging. It is challenging, and obviously there is money to be made. You know, if you get above a certain point, then there's plenty of money. But if you're like most people, desperately trying to survive in this mid period where you can just about make a bit of money if everything goes right, or potentially you could lose money if like things go wrong, that's the kind of world that most people I know sort of exist in. So it is challenging, but like you said earlier, it's a passion. It's something you love. So you just do it. You just got to do it. There's no choice.
Okay, Bruce, and talking about touring, when planning a tour for this new album, what smart decisions needs to be made, and at what point do you determine whether it's viable to go ahead with it or not?
So I think with this, the new album, which we're going to probably tour as a duo with just me and John, we've kind of realized now that we are offered shows and that we can actually just jump on an airplane or jump on a train or a car carrying our instruments, and that way we can do it. We can turn up at any venue and probably not lose money, and that's what we're doing. So we've got about sort of 6 or 7 shows. Unfortunately, none in Spain. I need to speak to my agent about coming back to Spain, because but the beauty is if we did come back to Spain, we'd be able to fly. I'd be able to fly to Madrid, and as opposed to drive for 24 hours. And so it's challenging, but we've been able to make it viable by being very portable. And it's very useful that technology now is so miniature that we can manage to do it, apart from our guitars.
Yeah. Well, it would be a pleasure to see you here in Spain once again. And that's all, Bruce. Thank you so much indeed for your time, and congratulations again for your amazing album.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Talk to you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.